What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again with the Stochastic Fantasy Football channel. And today I'm back talking about some best ball. It is Monday, so we are going to go through risers and fallers from the past week on Underdog Fantasy. Before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. And of course, we are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. That is the platform we will be referencing all throughout this video, and they have a phenomenal deal for you guys, which you can't miss. Right now, if you click the link in the video description below or use the promo code STOCHASTIC, you are going to get a $100 match deposit bonus. It is really that easy. $100 in, they are going to match it, give you 100 free. That is 4 entries into Best Ball Mania 4. That tournament has millions of dollars up top in prizes. And if you want something else, this platform is constantly innovating. Tons of different best ball platforms. They have pick'em contests for those of you in non-legal betting states where you can get up to 20 extra entry fee. They have daily fantasy contests, large field GPPs. They have best ball drafts, which we already mentioned. And this is literally 100 free dollars. So click that link, use the promo code Stochastic, and if you're concerned with your play, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. So over the past week, we've actually seen a lot of movement. And, last week we talked about a lot of players towards the bottom of drafts, late round picks. Today, we've actually seen some movers near the top. We're actually going to start kind of in the middle and bounce all over the place, but we are going to start with our risers. Then we'll get into some fallers and hopefully talk about a bunch of teams here. But to kick things off, we are going to head to Houston, which is music to my ears. This is one of my most owned players in best ball, Nico Collins. He's up a bunch of spots this week, and I think rightfully so. To be exact, he's up 6.5. He jumped from 132.5 up to 26. And I think people are starting to finally realize that the target competition in Houston is pretty weak. You have Brandon Cooks out the door, vacates a 21% target share, over 30% of the air yards. And all they really did to replace him was bring in Robert Woods. They draft Tank Dell late, and you get John Mechie back, who coming off a cancer diagnosis, and props to him, in remission now, will be with the team. For fantasy purposes, I'm not sure what he has to offer. He's a wait and see type player, which leaves really one bona fide pass catcher in Nico Collins. Sure, you have Dalton Schultz come in, but he plays a different position. Nico Collins is going to be on the field every single snap. And he was efficient when he was on the field last year. Only played 10 games, but a 19% target share, 31% air yard share in that span, 481 receiving yards, a 1.68 yards per route is efficient. And now we're getting a quarterback upgrade. CJ Stroud comes in. He's currently our wide receiver 54, and right now he is wide receiver 58. So he's rising. He's getting closer to our ranking, a player I still plan on drafting aggressively, extremely easy to stack with Stroud. We're all in on Nico Collins and lucky to get some value on him early in the season. Let's go to our second player here. We have another riser in Giovanni Johnson, another player I've been pretty aggressive on. My personal exposure isn't quite as high, but a player I've been trying to get. Pittsburgh stacks have been really cheap this offseason, and now we have Johnson up 5.5 ADP spots. He's up from 64.4 to 59.8 on Underdog Fantasy. And I think this makes sense. We're expecting a jump from Kenny Pickett in year 2. The offense should be better. I think the concerns are George Pickens is there. They signed Allen Robinson, and a lot of people do expect somewhat of a positive regression from Robinson. He is aging, and they're expecting a jump from Pickens in year 2. But Johnson, while he plays the slot, it's not the most exciting role. He is a bona fide pass catcher. He's proven. He had 882 yards last year. Before that, 923, and then 1,161. This is a consistent player. And again, this offense should be experiencing positive regression. If you look at Kenny Pickett's touchdown rate, it was at just 1.8% last year. That was near the bottom of the league. Generally, we're seeing quarterbacks hover in that 4 to 5% range. So even if we see the touchdown numbers increase, which they should, Johnson didn't score any last year. This is a player who's still coming in as an ADP value, and he's an early-ish round pick to mid-round pick here. And he falls in plenty of drafts where he's very easy to stack with Kenny Pickett. So we currently have him as the wide receiver 27. He is wide receiver 30 on Underdog Fantasy right now, still giving us some value and some chances to scoop up Johnson as he hopefully continues to rise in drafts, getting closer and closer to where we have him in our personal rankings on Stochastic. And speaking of which, if you would like access to these rankings, they cover Underdog, DraftKings, Drafters, fantasy football rankings as well. You can get those by clicking the link in the video description below. It is $39.95 for the whole year, and that gives you those rankings, which are constantly updating. It gives you all of the content we're talking about. This video here is in article form, so if you'd like more depth analysis on risers, fallers, players to target, late round sleepers, busts, we have it all in this package, and it is just $39.95 for the whole year. So go ahead, click that link in the video description below, and take advantage of that. All right, one more riser we're going to talk about today. And I promise I didn't just talk about guys that I am bullish on. I'm just positive. Good week for me to see these guys rising. Antonio Gibson for the Washington Commanders. He's up 5.5 slots, 5.2 to be exact. And he's a player I've been trying to get a lot, mainly because he was going outside the top 100, 103.6. He's crept just inside of that 98.4, so still very affordable here. But he's a player that has a solid pass catching role. We know Brian Robinson's there. The team drafted him pretty early. And, he was pretty inefficient last year. Basically went to a split backfield with Robinson handling the early down work, Gibson getting mostly the pass down work. But Robinson only averaged 3.9 yards per carry. Yards after contact, pretty inefficient there as well. Gibson still was able to grab 42 balls for almost 300 yards in the pass game. I don't see that rule changing. So at the very least, you have a solid floor with Gibson because he catches a lot of passes. And no one's really expecting this Commanders team to be good. You've got Sam Howell under center. Presumably, maybe we see Brissett through the year. But regardless, Washington should be trailing, which means Gibson should be on the field a lot. And then I think you have some outs to a potential 3-down workload, not just with injury, but because of that inefficiency. Gibson, 6'2", 220 pounds. This is a guy that previously rushed for over 1,000 yards. He's been injured, had the foot injury last year, played through it all year, leading to some inefficiency himself. But if he can get back to that early career form, I wouldn't be surprised to see him carve out a little more on the ground than we're expecting here. He's currently at RB 32 in our ranks, and he's jumped to RB 31 on Underdog Fantasy, but we're still pretty in line with ADP here. He's not a guy we'll be drafting as aggressively as Nico Collins or Johnson, but still very comfortable with Antonio Gibson at his current ADP. Solid value based on the pass catching upside here. And we'll talk about a few other risers, but we're going to talk about them in conjunction with some fallers because there's, been some news from camp where a certain guy rises and subsequently his teammate falls. So we'll talk into a few situations as we move forward here. The first faller we're going to hit on is Taekwon Thornton, and this is the perfect example of what I just laid out. Down 9.3 spots in ADP. He's now at 171.3. Previously, we saw him in the 160s. Now, this is basically on the heels of the Devontae Parker contract extension. We've seen Devontae Parker jump 19 slots himself over the last week. And it's not just Taekwon that's down. Juju Smith-Schuster saw his ADP fall 7 slots. I think all of this speaks to a crowded receiver room and a pretty inefficient passing attack. Mac Jones has not lived up to his first-round draft pedigree, and there is some optimism here, but this is a guy we saw benched for Bailey Zappi at times last year. In addition to Thornton and Smith-Schuster, as well as Parker signing that deal, you still have Hunter Henry on the roster. You still have Kendrick Bourne. You saw Mike Gesicki join the offense in free agency. There's a lot of names here for a passing attack that's relatively inefficient on a team that's largely decided they're going to run the ball with Ramondre Stevenson. And they have some depth there too with Pierre Strong and some other rookies from the previous draft. So overall, I don't hate players like Taekwon Thornton. We're actually not that far off in rankings. He's our wide receiver 75, and he currently is coming off the board at wide receiver 74 on Underdog. So that draft puts him a little closer in line with our ADP and our current rankings. But overall, players like Taekwon Thornton are going to be really risky late in drafts, and I think you can get more surefire things late rather than gamble on a deep threat for a passing attack, which we're not expecting a whole lot out of this year with New England. Our second faller is in a similar situation. We are going to go to Green Bay, where we have Jaden Reed down 7 spots, ADP now 161. And this is a player where we got some news about Romeo Doubs having a pretty good offseason. And this isn't entirely surprising. Romeo Doubs was a day 3 rookie last year, 4th round pick. he has a year of experience over Reed. This might be a little overblown. We get these camp reports a lot. So-and-so is excelling. So I want to see this continue through the offseason, but it makes sense when you think about it. Dubes has the leg up. He caught 42 balls for 425 yards. His yards per route run was 1.4. Not great, not bad, but he did drop 5 balls. That's largely a correctable stat. He'll be competing with Reed, rookie from day 2 out of Michigan State. Just a situation in flux right now. Not a lot to really be said other than that. And I expect this to shake out throughout the summer. But honestly, there's a chance that both of these guys are on the field because 3 wide receiver sets. Green Bay doesn't have a lot of alternatives. You basically have Christian Watson, and then we don't know. So I don't hate drafting Jayden Reed. I'm actually probably going to scoop more of him up now that he's a little more affordable. But overall, I think his ADP falling puts him a little closer to expectation, just given he's a rookie without any proven pedigree, and Dubes has already been there. Last one, not the same situation, but you have Michael Gallup falling 6.3 spots. The Dallas Cowboys, currently at 135.6. Previously, we saw him at 129. I've been pretty vocal about this incongruency with Dallas's ADP throughout the offseason. People seem to be very bullish on Dak Prescott. Also bullish on CeeDee Lamb. The CeeDee Lamb part I get. He's a bona fide stud. But with Dallas's offense entirely, you move from Kellen Moore's OC calling plays, regularly top 3 in the NFL, to Mike McCarthy, who has been a play caller for a pretty big sample. It just occurred a while ago with Green Bay. But we're expecting some negative regression in terms of play volume. I'm expecting some negative regression in terms of efficiency just based on the body of work and some of the offenses Mike McCarthy tanked in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, and Jordy Nelson. But people are drafting Prescott and CeeDee aggressively, and then they're not drafting Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup. So you get this incongruency. If Dak Prescott actually lives up to his ADP, Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks are going to have better years than where they're being drafted in fantasy. So this is a situation where we're kind of middling in our rankings. We're actually right in line ADP with CeeDee Lamb. I don't think you're going to see much disagreement there throughout the industry. But we're lower on Prescott and higher on Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup, which actually puts them in line with projections. And Michael Gallup still coming off as a value for us. So at 135.6, I've been getting a fair amount of Michael Gallup, and I plan on drafting him some more as the wide receiver 61. Extremely affordable. He's just not going to be a guy in a lot of my stacks. I'll probably look to, get some Detroit and some playoff stacks with some of these Dallas guys here. But still in on Michael Gallup despite the fall. Not really seeing a reason why this fall occurred. He's another year removed from the ACL, should be fully healthy here. And Cooks is aging. So not to mention Dalton Schultz is gone, vacating some targets, which maybe opens some up for Cooks himself. But ultimately, we'll still be in on Gallup in this range. But that'll do it for us today with the risers and fallers. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think of these risers and fallers. If you're with me drafting some of them or against me, I'd love to hear about it. Hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. That goes a long way for us. So thank you if you've done that. And we'll be back all throughout the week with more best ball analysis. So make sure to check that out. And until then, good luck, everyone. We'll see you next time.